Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC 314, headlined by Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, if you want to become a client, link down in the description. I have a 5% max bet up for clients. We are on a 75% win rate on those plays over the last 12 months. Love the spot that I have for this card. Also have 4 plays right now locked in. Gonna have a big slate this weekend. Love this card from a betting perspective. So check that out. Also, check me out on Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. I am doing another giveaway. Now, a lot of these pay-per-views, I'm giving something away. I've given away an Alex Pereira rookie card, a couple different Alex Pereira rookie cards, giving away Chimaev rookie card, cards of value, cards that are graded. This weekend, I am giving away an Aaron Judge Perfect 10 gem mint condition graded card, giving it away to over on my Twitter. So check that out. I will have that up. If it's not up right now, it'll be up pretty shortly. And so get involved with that. If you want to get involved, it's completely free. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Alexander Volkanovski and Diego Lopez. Now, we've got Volkanovski here. He's a minus 125 on the comeback. We've got Lopez plus 105. Now, this is an interesting fight here because if this fight took place like 2 years ago, this line would be dramatically wider than it is right now. But at this point here, we've got Lopez, who definitely has been, earning the respect, having that aura, having that hype that really has looked great. He's really had a nice run. And then you've got, Volkanovski, who's definitely on the downturn. He's 1-3 out of his last 4 and has suffered a couple knockouts, hasn't looked good when you're looking at it. But you also got to take into consideration the fact that since 2014, the only people that he has lost to is Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. And that is pretty impressive when you're looking at it overall, and you're losing to the pound for pound best fighter on the planet. But the big takeaway, really for me in that his run and really the last few losses that he had is the time frame and just how everything really was set up for him. And it was really big hurdles for him. And I think those losses have really skewed this line because I think the setup that he was in was terrible. So let's first kind of cover that. And what I'm talking about first is that, we all remember when he fought champion versus champion, Islam versus Volkanovski, which was, he moved up in weight. It was a big spot for him, which was an absolutely impressive fight, a great fight, razor thin fight between them. Some people even scored it for Volkanovski, got the victory. That's how close it was. But so he has that fight with Islam, loses. Then he goes back down to featherweight to fight Yair Rodriguez, which great performance from him there. He dropped in weight. He looked great. He dominated Yair, took him down, beat him up, ended up getting the finish in that 3rd round. Now, just 4 months after that, he goes back up in weight on short notice to fight Islam again. Now, that is terrible, I think, of a setup for a guy coming back, jumping from weight to weight. Not a good look. He goes out there, gets knocked out. Not the best look. Then after that, just 4 months later, roughly, he goes back down in weight after getting knocked out only months later to fight Ilia Topuria, which, again, not the most optimal situation for him. And then he gets knocked out by Topuria. Now, obviously, these guys are elite level fighters he's losing to, top of the top when you're talking about those guys. But you also this is why a lot of people fighters don't jump back and forth. When they move up, they stay in that weight class, or they come down, they stay in that certain weight class, because it's hard for your body to be at an optimal, peak physical condition when you're jumping weight, when you're up, when you're down, all those things happening. You're just not fully there. Your strength isn't there. Your body isn't prepared for it. All of those things. And now you're fighting the best fighters on the planet. I thought that was a terrible setup for him and really made him look, I think, worse than we're talking about this decline of Volkanovski. Now, the other part here that we got to look at is the big red flag on Lopez is absolutely his cardio. I think that is really a massive concern here. Now, I'm not saying that he's a guy that just death gasses, quickly, but really that first round, he's explosive. He's got good footwork, good movement. He's rangy from the outside. There's a lot of great things that he does do. But after the first round, things start to really slow down. And it's really been seen multiple times here where, it's visible. You can see this where against Dan Ige, we saw it. Now I understand with the Ige situation, there was weight changes and opponent changes and all of these things, kind of going on. And I get that part of it. But Ige came off the couch and was outpacing Lopez in that third round. And Lopez was really starting to decline there. Now, obviously, Lopez went out there. He got the job done. It was difficult situations. So I get that also. But the cardio, you shouldn't be getting outpaced by a guy that just came off the couch hours before the fight took place. And then most recently against Brian Ortega, which, Ortega is, I think, as washed as it almost gets at this particular point. But even in that fight there, credit to Lopez. Early, he lands, a beautiful combination, Ortega, had a chance to get the finish. Oh, there was a lot of great things that happened in that mix of things. But if you, which I do, go back and rewatch all these fights, you go back, you even hear Joe Rogan, John Anik, multiple people said, that are in, cage side saying Lopez looks tired. Lopez looks a little gassed. Lopez is, breathing heavy. Lopez was looking at the time, looking at the clock during the fight. That to me is a bad sign that, yes, early in that fight was a little bit active, but to be gassed going into the second round is a bad look when you're about to fight your first 5-rounder against arguably the best featherweight of all time. And you also got in the fact that, Volkanovski is going to be able to weaponize pace and weaponize that cardio. And I think that's going to be a massive opportunity, a massive path here for Volkanovski. And also, he's proven 5-rounder and he backs it up with the volume. So if he can move forward, keep pushing forward, landing the big shots, keeping Lopez working, I don't really see him really finding or digging deep as this fight goes on for Lopez. I think that Volkanovski is going to find a lot of success here. He's been here before, much higher strength of schedule. A lot of things really go for him. And then also, one of the opportunities here, I think that we all know that Volkanovski's leg kicks. I think that is going to be a big spot here that as this fight continues to wear on, that Lopez not going to have the footwork that he has in that first or in that second round. And as this fight continues to wear on, he's going to chop at the legs, push forward, really work Lopez. Lopez really starts to, the combinations get a little sloppy. His hand speed doesn't really, isn't really up to par. Things start to tilt down. That's where Volkanovski, an experienced guy, can really start to pick this up big time. And I think also you can add in that Volkanovski may look for takedowns. He may look to get the takedown, get control. Now, maybe not right away, because obviously Lopez is high-level jiu-jitsu, but Lopez also isn't a guy that gets takedowns. Out of his 6 UFC fights, he has 5 takedown attempts and only has landed 2 of them. So this is a spot here where I think Volkanovski can grind on him. Volkanovski can move forward. He can kick the leg. He can mix it up a little bit. And I think outside of that first round, where I think it's maximum danger for Volkanovski, I do think he gets the job done here. And I think this is a great price on Alexander Volkanovski in a big bounce back spot. And I think he becomes the champion once again. So I'm taking Alexander Volkanovski minus 125. The next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Paddy Pimblett. He is minus 145. In the comeback, we've got Michael Chandler plus 122. Now, this one here, it feels like it's one fighter on the rise and one fighter on the decline. And I think we know who is who in that particular situation here. But you got Chandler, who is explosive. The guy's got big power. He's going to come forward. He's going to throw big shots. He's a finisher, 23 victories, 18 finishes. And that's really where he comes. He's really looking for that finish, and he wants to be exciting and he wants to be explosive. Now, he's going to pressure forward. He's going to look for maybe some wrestling. Well, I shouldn't say he's going to look for wrestling. He has wrestling. He doesn't really utilize it, but he does have wrestling. Prefers to just scrap, throw big shots here. And, he's faced a lot of the top tier guys. I mean, really, he has faced the who's who. Just a great resume, whether he's winning or losing, he's still facing some top level guys. But with that being said, the best days of Michael Chandler are far, far, far behind him at this point here. He's going to be 39 years old in a few weeks. That's not that good. You're looking at it. He's 1-4 out of his last 5. And not only just that, but it's the fact that, his only win is against Tony Ferguson, really the ghost of Tony Ferguson. But not only the fact that that's his only win, but I thought that most recently against Charles Oliveira, a fight that I was at, and that I thought Chandler looked really a big big downturn. I thought that a lot of the things that we come to really, love about Chandler, his explosiveness and all these things, I thought he was very sloppy. I thought he was just playing to the crowd a little bit too much. He wasn't really, being, fighting to a game plan. There was just issues that I thought that he didn't look as good. Chandler was still able to out wrestle. I thought out wrestle Chandler. I thought that was kind of a weird situation there where he was dominant, got 5 takedowns, 15 minutes of control time. Chandler couldn't really do anything up until the last round where he was, throwing about 55 illegal shots to Oliveira's head. But besides for that, Paddy now is in his prime. Paddy is right now in his prime. He's 30 years old. He's going to be 9 years younger than Chandler at this point here. He's a well-rounded fighter, has high-level jiu-jitsu, and there's a lot of great things that he just does do. And I think he is going to find that wrestling success. I think he is going to be able to mix it up far better than anything that Chandler is going to be able to do, because I get it. He's a finisher. There's opportunities there for Chandler to land the big shot and do all those great things. But I do think that this is a spot where, you're going to have Paddy can mix it up, can get takedowns, but really outside of a big shot, I think Paddy can stay safe. I think he's going to have the better hand speed. And I think the big part here is Chandler is extremely wild and reckless in the pocket. I mean, this guy is winging shots left and right, throwing shots, just out of position, overthrowing, exposing himself to counters. It was just like, you're just consistently seeing that. And I just don't like anything that I'm really seeing from it at this point here. And I do think this is a spot where at this point, Chandler is more of a showman than he is fighting to a winning strategy. And I think that, again, you've got Paddy who he needs this win. This is the biggest spot that Paddy Pimblett has had in his professional career, while Chandler has, pretty much 1 foot out the door after waiting, 2 years for Conor McGregor. So I think that this is UFC wants this. Obviously what UFC wants, they don't always get, but UFC wants Paddy to win. They think this is a great name to continue to build Paddy Pimblett, move him up the ranks, move him in a position to maybe for a title shot. Like, all these things are starting to happen. I think this is really the end of Michael Chandler. I don't like what I'm seeing from him, even at this particular price at minus 145. Not bad. If you want to get a little bit better of a number, inside the distance is sitting around minus 115, 120. I do think that the probability of a finish is likely as well, too. So I'm taking Paddy Pimblett to get the job done, minus 145. Now, the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Nikita Krylov, minus 192, against Dominic Reyes, plus 160. Now, the big question here is, what version of Reyes are we getting? Are we getting that wash version, or are we getting that John Jones debatable win version? Now, we do remember all back in 2020, he fought John Jones, controversial loss. After that, he took 3 beatings that, are going to take years off his life. And he goes out there, 3 straight losses. Jan Blachowicz, Yuri Prochazka, Ryan Spann, all flatline him. Terrible looks all around. But since then, he has taken some time off. He has come back. He has strung together 2 wins, 2 knockout victories. And it does seem a little bit that, Reyes is starting to get back on the horse a little bit, look a little bit better overall. Now, the other side here on the Krylov side is, I think that, yes, there could be some issues on the Reyes side, but there are some big red flags, I think, on the Krylov side here. And I think the first thing being the fact that he has had a layoff for 2 years. And yes, that's not great. Layoff for 2 years. You never know what you're getting at this point here. You never know what type of fighter you're getting. But the layoff is one thing, and I think that's concerning. But the bigger concern is the fact that he, not long ago, I think it was like a year ago or somewhere in there, he had back surgery or shoulder surgery, whatever it was. He had, significant surgery, significant things to fix. And then the healing process, the recovery process, getting back into fight shape, getting back into fight ready. I think that a lot of those things mixing in with the 2-year layoff are a bad sign for this guy here coming back into this spot. And I think those are massive concerns for the type of fighter or who you're going to get when you're talking about Krylov. Now, stylistically, Krylov is a guy that's going to need takedowns. He's going to need to get the takedowns, going to need to get the control time, going to need to look to move forward. But he does have subpar takedown ability here. He's got a 38% takedown success rate, while Dominic Reyes on the other side, he does have solid defensive wrestling. And he currently has an 82% takedown defense rate. I think that can hold up in this particular spot here. And listen, if John Jones goes 2 for 9, on Reyes, and again, it was a while ago and all those things, but still it was a prime John Jones and wasn't able to really, keep him down. He was 2 for 9 takedowns with only 1:40 of control time. I don't really think Krylov is going to be able to get him down, keep him down, control him, work him. I do think that Reyes has that physicality, that explosiveness that is going to help him kind of create the space, get back to his feet, or even create the space when he's got his back up against the fence and Krylov is grinding on him, looking to kind of work him from there. And, you even add in the fact that, overall, just Reyes can have the better hand speed, better combinations, real power in his hands overall. And I think he can sprawl and brawl and keep it standing and just clearly be the better striker, because on the feet, I think it's really going to be one-way traffic. I am not high on Krylov striking overall. I think he's good at mixing in some striking with some takedowns, with some grinding on you, banking rounds, banking time. I think that's what Krylov can do. But I think it's a bad matchup here with Reyes, where Reyes can be able to keep the distance, keep the space, and really outland him. And the big, I guess, concern here that a lot of people may have on the Reyes side is the fact that of his chin. Is his chin washed? Now, the guys that knocked out Reyes are big hitters. I mean, say what you will about Ryan Spann, but the guy's a big hitter. He's a monster. Yuri Prochazka, hard hitter. Jan Blachowicz, big time hitter. So he's not getting sparked out by, Joe Schmo. He's getting sparked out by, really powerful hitters. And you look at Krylov. Krylov is not a guy who doesn't really spark people out on their feet. His last KO victory was over Alexander Gustafsson, which should tell you enough right there. And then even prior to that, his last KO was back in 2018 outside of the UFC. So I don't think the chin issues for Reyes are really going to materialize in this spot here. I think he's going to do enough to kind of stay safe, land the bigger shots, and get the victory. So at this plus number, I do like Dominic Reyes to get the job done. And last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Sean Woodson minus 182 against Dan Ige plus 145. Now, this is going to be, I think, a great striking match between these two guys. Both of them like to throw hands. Both of them like to box. Both of them are going to, stand there and swing. And you've got, Woodson, who is long, rangy boxer overall. The guy is good from the outside. He wants to utilize his reach, utilize his range, and just really fight well behind his jab. He does have boxing foundation, boxing background, which he does, really, I think, somewhat do well into the cage normally. But he is going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. He's going to have a 5-inch height advantage. So I do think some of that can be tough here for Dan to look to cut distance, get in the face of Woodson. And I think that can be a problem. But I do think that Ige does have, the slick boxing and the power to kind of cut distance and get inside that reach. And I think he can find some of that success here. And one of the big things here is the pressure. I think that is really, really important here for Ige to not just stay at distance and allow, which Woodson's good at. He'll have good footwork. He'll try to fight, long, behind his long reach, and just really kind of keep you at the end of his punches. And I just think Ige is a guy that can move forward, that can crash the pocket, that is going to be the far harder hitter between these two. And the big thing is that Woodson doesn't like pressure. He just wants to be at range, wants to be the one that's kind of dictating the pace a little bit. If he starts getting on his back foot, that's where Ige can really mix it in. He can even look for his own takedowns. I think Ige can get takedowns if he needs it to mix it up, and if he cuts in just to kind of get his hands and get Woodson down. But I think also one of the big red flags here on the Woodson side is his durability. Now, he was knocked down twice against Luis Saldana. Not the best look, but overall, he doesn't absorb punches very well. I don't like the way he hit when he gets hit. I don't like his reactions. And now he's fighting probably one of the harder hitters that he has faced in Dan Ige. And I think Ige inside the pocket is going to find a lot of success. And I think he's going to work the body, mix it up a little bit. And I think there's going to be a lot of success because he's going to be the guy that's going to have the more impactful shot. It's going to be Ige's going to have those big moments. You have Woodson, who's going to be the guy who's looking to pitter-patter the shots, bank rounds on the outside. I don't see him finishing Dan Ige by any means. I think he's really going to need to just outland him over the 3 rounds to find any kind of success where I think Dan could look to outland him, look to possibly mix in the wrestling, look to knock him out. I do think there's just multiple paths here for him. Now, the last part here is the fact that Woodson, his frame is massive for the division. He's 6'2", he's a 6'2" featherweight that's turning 33 in June. I mean, that's tough. That's tough, for a guy that's going to consistently cut weight and make the weight and not have to fully drain himself. And I do think that there is a point, especially kind of now, is where it just starts to be a really tough weight cut. He's got this massive frame. There has to be impact. It has to start to really, I think deteriorate some of his skills on fight night, the day after. I just think there's going to be problems there. So I do think that there are situations here for Dan Ige at this plus number to be a guy that's going to go out there, fight for your money, land big shots. So in this spot here, I'm going Dan Ige plus 145. So there you have it for my plays for UFC 314. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Don't forget to like this video. And also do not forget to go over to my Twitter at Kyle Anthony UFC. Enter to win the Aaron Judge rookie card that I'm giving away this Saturday night. So let's rock and roll. We got a 5% max. We are going to cash. We're going to kick ass this weekend. And let's cash.